Hey everybody, welcome to another Friday production stream. My name is Grover, Neville, as usual. We will be doing our, we're going to do mixing today, kind of mixing production. Similar workflow for me. They kind of overlap into the same thing. Yeah, this is something we actually haven't worked on yet. So this is new stuff. And yeah, if you guys have questions, as usual, please feel free to ask me. We are always an open book here at Audeze. If you've got feedback or things like that, you know, on current stuff, or you want to know what the status of something is, definitely drop us a question in the chat, either on YouTube or Twitch. And yeah, be happy to answer them if I can. This one. So I hope everyone's had a good week so far. Been a little crazy. Thanks to everybody who showed up on the Wednesday stream, which was fantastic. Had a very good time. Really enjoyed it, especially when folks participate to that level. It's really nice. Let's see. This is all vocals. So, is this? Oh no, that's not. So yeah, this is something I've been working on. Vocals are not done yet. You can see we've got some stuff. We're building some things up. Still kind of working with the singer to get the right vibe. It's not quite there, but we'll get there. So for right now, we're going to be working on the instrumental track. And something actually that, you know, I like to do, and maybe I'll show you guys an example. So one cool thing I like about Reaper is you don't have to close the other project. You can just open new project tabs, which actually makes this one, which actually makes Reaper a viable program for doing live performance. Now it's a little bit technical and tricky, but there is a plugin called Playtime, which works basically to turn Reaper into an Ableton Live emulation, kind of. And you can use that along with the project tabs and tempo syncing, which is very powerful in Reaper. You can automate tempo and tempo changes, which is really cool on the fly in Reaper. It's kind of a little bit nitty grittier than you would have in a typical DAW, like Logic or something like that, but you can do it in a really cool way. And so you can actually use Reaper for live performances. So there's some cool stuff you can do with that. Now, I just want to show you this. We're not going to actually work on this because this is some music of a client of mine's. So I can't really play it for you guys, but well, I could play probably a little bit of it for you. But the most important thing is not the music itself. This is actually kind of a slightly crummy sounding indie rock record. Like it sounds slightly crummy. But the point is, here you can see we've got all of our buses, right? So there's a bus for horns, there's a bus for lead guitar, rhythm guitar, drum bus, all this different stuff, lead vocals, yada, yada, yada. What we've done is side chained. So I put this over every bus except for the vocal bus. So everything is feeding into this instrumental control bus. It's a whole instrumental track, right? And what I've then done is I've side chained the lead vocal into this bus, and I've set a small threshold control for multiplicity, where it just dips out around 750 hertz, which is the main formant frequency of the lead singer in this song. In this case, a kind of baritone indie rock dude. And this bandpass just gently, almost opto, I have it set really slow attack and a pretty slow release, just kind of gently scoops out whenever he's singing. So I don't have to automate any of his vocals in relationship to the track. All I have to do is slap on this, you know, audio 3 and 4 is how I have it routed, side chained, boom, bring the side chain up in here. And then all I have to do is just let it scoop out a little bit of that mid-range, and I've got the whole instrumental track all being scooped out and basically automated without having to actually automate anything. So that's a really handy trick to use if you're trying to get a vocal to sit in an instrumental track. Just find that formant frequency, mix in a little dry wet, and boom, scoop out that mid-range wherever the vocalist is sitting. So that's a cool way to do that. Anyways, we're not going to listen to that because that one's kind of a big session. It might crash OBS or Reaper, so we're not going to do that. Difference between Mobius and Penrose. Hi, Kevin. Nice to see you. I don't think I've seen you on stream before, so welcome. Mobius, and we've gone over this before. We actually have some probably... Do we have a video on that? Let me check. Because I don't think we do. Basically, the Mobius has all of those cool surround sound functions and features. We don't. Although I remember Provoked Prawn did a couple of videos on this. I think they were pretty good, as I recall. So I might check these ones out. Basically, Mobius has all of those cool spatialization, head tracking features and things like that. So if you want spatial audio and you don't mind a wired headset, then that's the one to go for. It has basically a 7.1 sound card inside of it. So you can use it for surround sound gaming or things like that. Penrose, on the other hand, is, sorry for my gross swallowing songs. Penrose, on the other hand, is a wireless gaming headset targeted more towards console users, but can also be used by PC users. And that one does not have the spatial audio built into it. However, a lot of games have spatial audio already built in. So if you want to have Mobius for movie watching, for surround sound and head tracking, right, to take that spatial element to another level, Mobius is a great choice. But for low latency gaming, you'll definitely want to use it wired via USB. The Penrose is great if you want to have the maximum compatibility and no wires with your console, and you want to enjoy the spatial audio, which is pretty good, which is baked into the games. So that's kind of the difference between the two. They are more similar than different, but an important distinction for sure. I personally like the Mobius. That's kind of my jam, but Penrose is great too. I've also used it. And if you're a console gamer, I don't do as much console gaming nowadays as I used to. But if you're a console gamer, that's a great one to use. So I actually plug my Mobius into my television, so I can use it with any of my consoles, Switch, any of that stuff. So that's kind of how I do it. Anyways, let's take a listen to this. This track is almost entirely unmixed. There's a couple of trim plugins. Looks like I still have some of the synthesizers I use for production in here. A gate, a little EQ, repitch and Reaper, which I usually do. I don't know if this is... Yeah. So, only complaint is recently the mic is inconsistent. Sorry to hear that. We have a replacement mic. Hold on, let me turn my light down. It's really bright in my face. There we go. Maybe like there. We do have, I think, a replacement mic either currently on the website or coming soon. Let me check. Accessories. Here it is. Mobius and Penrose microphone. So the cool thing is, if you've got Mobius, this will work great with it, and it will actually be a bit of an upgrade because the Mobius microphone is not as good as the new Penrose microphone that we designed alongside Shure. Hi, Nestor. Nice to see you. Welcome to the stream. I can't remember if I've seen you around before. If you're new, definitely glad to have you here. If you've lurked around on these streams before, welcome back. But yeah, the new Shure microphone that came with Penrose is now available in Mobius. If you get a Mobius new, it'll come with it. But yeah, definitely an upgrade. Sounds a lot nicer, a lot clearer. Really good tone. I did some beta testing for this a couple months ago when it came out internally. Not came out to the public, but when it came out internally to us, and it sounds really good. So thumbs up from me on that one. CM3LA, I am going to... Actually, I'm not going to be playing games today. I play games on Wednesdays. Today, we're going to be talking about some music production stuff. I was hoping to have a film score or like a QC, like a mastering QC to work on today. I don't, unfortunately for you guys. There was some delays with, that stuff. Sony Pictures always, they play by the rules of their own timetable. So, anyways, today we're going to be looking at some music. This is unmixed, but relatively produced. Again, vocals are not finished yet for this. I'm waiting for more vocals on this. We only have vocals for half the song, right? So we need more vocals. So anyways, we are going to be working on the production and the mixing for this song. Gel pads I don't think we're ever going to see again, unfortunately. That was a one-off, and I don't even know if the people who made if our suppliers for the parts for the gel pads were, I don't even know if they're around anymore. I don't think they were our usual pad suppliers, so it's unlikely. I'm going to say it's unlikely that those are going to come back, unfortunately. I never used them, actually, but I think I recall being told that those were kind of a limited edition type of item, unfortunately. And we need you guys to be able to hear what's going on in my DAW. If OBS could, there we go, thank you. Stand by. Let me just get output there. Always fun routing things in OBS. Let's see. Where am I coming out of? Okay. Oh, you guys can't hear it. Okay, cool. Yeah. For some reason, OBS shows up. Sometimes the desktop audio shows up as, I don't know, it just routes things weird sometimes. Anyways, let's take a listen to this real quick and just see where we're at. Totally rough mix. There's a few levels balanced here and a couple things just to get rid of some uber annoying production quirks. But yeah, it's pretty much it. So let's take a listen. So that's kind of the basic structure of the song. And you can see we've got space here where we've taken out, right? This is first. There's an opening. Verse starts here, I believe, if I'm recalling the vocal line right. The vocal line right. And then this synth is kind of follows, it sort of roughly underpins the vocal melody. That is the chorus. On this little chorus thing, we get a break here. Vocal melody comes back. We have this cool doubled synth thing. I love this sound. This sound is so cool to me. Right, so it's doubling this sound. I just love how fat and rich that synth is. That's nice. Then we've got another chorus here, and then there's a little interlude thingy that happens here, and then we have the ending, which is more of the stuff at the beginning. So relatively simple song in terms of actual structure. There's two choruses, a little ending thing. There might be another chorus synth in here that needs to be filled in. I can't remember. But we're just going to focus on kind of mixing the actual structure, because we have the whole structure here. We have all our pieces here. So we can get our sounds in order, and we can rearrange things if we need to. So the first thing is, I think, yeah, the first thing is just going to be getting all of our levels balanced and getting everything kind of in shape. So nothing is labeled either. So we're going to have to go through and label everything. So first of all, obviously we have this is the synth line. So that's going to be rhythm synth. And that has slight EQ to take out some harshness and a gate. I love this gate from Neutron 2 because it's a multi-band gate. Now, multi-band plugins are kind of complicated because there's always a sonic cost to putting a crossover filter band. You're filtering, right? But it's just so powerful and so easy to use and super. It's just awesome. I like it better than the gate in Neutron 3 in terms of the interface. I like it better than Expert Gate from DMG, which I also use a lot. You guys have probably seen before. It's just really easy to use. And then we have all of our percussion stuff, which I think is all on this bus, I want to say. Yes. So this is the synth bus. This is... what is this? Oh, this is the chorus synth. This is the rhythm double, or rhythm, I don't know, echo, I guess. We'll say double. It's kind of more descriptive. And labeling stuff is really important so that you come back and it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you're like, what the heck am I looking at? Let's take a listen to our rhythm bus, which has all, nope, that's not it. This is under this one. There we go. Okay. And what is this sound? Okay, so actually, this should be under there as well. It's technically where that should be. I'll make this red. Sorry, I haven't worked on this session in actually quite a while, so a little bit of, bear with me as I do a little bit of organizational work here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, whatever, that's fine. Actually, we're going to move this down there. And yeah, that's fine. Okay. So this is all of our rhythm stuff right here. And these drums, rhythm bus, or I guess we can call it a drum bus. It's not really just drums. It's all sorts of other stuff, but it's basically a drum bus. And that sounds like totally drunk and weird, which is on purpose. We might align a few small things there, but it's basically on purpose because this was all hand lined up to give kind of this like stretchy feel to the rhythm. So if you listen to it just by itself, it sounds kind of weird and messed up, like someone played the wrong thing. But then if you listen to it in context, so that's kind of cool. We talked about that last week in terms of production stuff, is doing things a lot more by hand. So all of these were played in by hand, and then these were glued and things like that. But you can see these have been all trimmed and edited, moved to be in a specific place. So it's all been tweaked by hand. And the reason for that is that as you can see with the synth, the rhythm synth down here, right? It's not lined up on the grid. So it starts and it just goes, right? There's no, it's the short key, there we go. So we've got a few edits here and there, mostly to cut things out where we have rhythmic hits, but it's pretty much just played in by hand, kind of, in rhythm, but off grid. So that is why we have all the drums lined up by hand. And the first thing I notice is that all these drums sound a little bit wimpy. We need to make them sound a little cooler. That kick has too much treble. That's what it has. Equilibrium. So I'm adding a low pass filter. Let's try Butterworth. I like that. This one is, I think, probably equilibrium is what we're going to use. Actually, just kidding. That's not what we want. We want sub-synth, which is a very cool. Hey K9, thank you. Yeah, it's very laid back and very like loose and whatnot. This is a really cool plugin called Sub-Synth from Brainworx, which I love their stuff. It is, let's try this band. Actually, maybe a little bit there and a little bit there. Is that too much? No, I want this band. That's pretty good. Let's do, this is still clipping things, so let us add a clipper on there, and yeah, we'll do pop. We'll see what gets what that gets us. I don't like that as much. I thought it would be punchier. Let's try Thunder. That is a kick which generates some subharmonics. Might fatten things up in a way that cool. So it's grooving a little more. We've got a contrast, right? So these two kicks, this is kick low, and kick high. Oops. Kick high. And so this is just a way of, excuse me, because there's no snare here, right? Right, there's not a traditional boom, chuck, boom, chuck. There's not a traditional snare. This is technically the snare, but it's like a weird synth sound or something. Yeah. I don't even remember what sound this is. Okay. It's a snare sound technically, but it's a weird modular snare sound from Diva. So it's not like a real, it's not a real snare. I'm not a real boy. So it's not really functioning the way snare sound is. So instead of a snare, we actually have two kicks, right? This is kind of like a weird, like this is like something Phineas from Billie Eilish, you know, Phineas and Billy would do. Right, it makes the groove kind of fall down in a weird way. Yeah, so it's like it fills in instead of having a second snare. There's a kick there, and it's pretty weird. but I kind of like it. We're going to add a compressor to the bottom kick. Make it a little punchier. That's a cool compressor pop. It lets the transients explode through, and then it clamps down on the stuff that happens afterwards. And so it, like, the transients explode, and it really makes things, it's more of a transient shaper than a compressor, really. It just makes things really jump out. Easy to overdo and still have it sound pretty good. But, you know, we try to be tasteful with things here. I like a lot of bass, as you all have probably noticed. Like a lot of bass. But my trick is always to try and make the bass punchy instead of just loud. Because if you compress and limit things really heavily, you're going to get essentially not very punchy, right? You're going to sap all the punch from the music, and you're not going to have a lot of space for low end. So you don't have huge low end, you don't have punch, you don't got anything. So what you want to try and do is you want to try and have huge low end by restricting it in the right ways and filtering it in the right ways so that you've got space to make things either super punchy or to have expansive low end. Most people's systems can't reproduce, 60, 50, or even 40 hertz, so having a bunch of bass rolling around down at 30 doesn't help you, unless you can, channel the harmonics, right? Like that's just rumble. And even for people who have good systems, that's pretty low, so that's kind of a thing you got to be conscious of is who's actually going to hear what you're putting in there. That is the nastiest, cheapest cymbal sound I've ever heard in my life. You know what we're going to do? This is a secret weapon of mine that almost nobody knows about. That's actually, I don't use it all the time, but it's really good. It's a good plugin. Most people don't think about Apogee as a plugin company, but... So that's... Okay, that's in stereo. So none of this drum bus is in stereo. Clear Mountain's domain is basically, if anyone here is familiar with Bob Clear Mountain, he's a really famous mix engineer from back in the day. He kind of started the whole like celebrity mixer thing. Like he was the OG. And I've seen that man work a board in ways that just like blew my mind. Like I saw him one time. He buses everything on an SSL console. Like he doesn't really work digital. Like he'll work digitally, but he doesn't do it in the DAW. He works on a console still. And he had a bunch of, he uses basically a bunch of buses to do parallel processing on an SSL console. And what he did was he bussed these Eventide reverbs to the console for parallel processing, and then basically took the pitch shifter from an Eventide outboard reverb, like an old H340 or 380 or whatever, or 430, I'm sorry, and spot corrected a vocal, like automated pitch correction on the fly in one take through an Eventide pitch shifter put through a parallel bus on his console. Is one of the craziest things I've ever seen anyone do. Like most people, they mix stuff and I kind of look at it and I'm like, okay, yeah, I get I get what's going on here. Seeing Bob Clearmountain mix is sort of like brain. It's just mind blowing. And this plugin is basically, it's just a collection of his like weird reverb buses that he does. He does like a de-esser, which is he just cranks out 7K and then just automates it. And then the delay lines are, I don't know what delay he's using, but there's some delay that he likes. And then he's got spin and what he calls blur. And the blur is basically just saturation, right? So you can do monos, whatever. Then he's got different reverbs that he's got basically in here, and you just mix it all together and you can pitch it, pan it, whatever. I just like the built-in ones because you get like the Born in the USA snare, which is massive, slappy, huge 80s snare. There's all these cool sounds. Let's Dance, things like that. There's not a lot of presets, but you really don't need much because this is just a cool plugin. Just a little bit will go a long way, and it's a little bit more creative than like your typical reverb. Like I have a lot of really clean, great sounding reverbs. This one adds a little character and like a real, like if you want huge reverbs that separate from the signal but still sound clear, this is great. It's actually got a ton of clarity to it. And what we're gonna do, gate. We're just going to add a gate to this. Because I want that sense of snap, but I want it to be like kind of... You can hear it pop through just a little bit. I want it to pop through just a little bit. I don't want it to be super obnoxious. These are snaps, I think. Yep. These are just snaps recorded in a room. And then what's happened is they've been pitched and panned, as you can see. I think all hard left, right, other than the very bottom two. 7, 7, 6. Yeah, so it's just triads, basically, you know. Fifths, thirds, and then a random whole step in there. Second, which is, I don't know. I like suspended harmonies. They're really cool. 1, 2, 1, 2, 6, 1, 2, 4, 6 almost always sound richer and more interesting than 1, 3, 5. And 1, 2, 6, 4, 7 is even better. So I use a lot of those kind of funky suspended, like suspended on either side of the fifth. So yeah, these are just pitched and panned, and this is what that sounds like if you're curious. Just adds a little more body to the snaps, which I think these could also use some. That's probably not going to work. I thought about adding subsynths to them. What I'm actually going to do is more Clear Mountains domain. Doink. Is this crazy? Yeah, probably. Will it work? I don't know. That's kind of interesting. Sort of cool. I don't know if it's that cool. Let's try. Vocal doubler. What I want these to do is just be like, just to gel a little more. Sound a little wider and bigger, maybe. Yeah, that's what I want. Oh, I don't need that much variation. Maybe like 35%. Now they're starting to sound kind of a little more like real snaps instead of like crappy snaps that I recorded in like a closet or something. I don't even know where these are recorded. Yeah, that's better. So let's take a listen to that. And then these probably can actually come up in level now. So let's try a -8. And it's clipping clearly. So we'll add a clipper in there and bring our input down by... we'll do EQ. Because we need some EQ on it probably anyways to shape it a little bit. we're going to do is... Actually, no. I take it back. We're going to use an elliptical filter. This one's really cool and weird. This is an interesting thing you can do with equilibriums. You can just listen to a single EQ band. The isotope EQs have this as well. It's incredibly handy. Nice. I like it. Cool. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but by pulling out the low end, even just a little bit like that, the sound gets tighter. Listen to this. It's almost too perfect now, right? What was kind of a crappy recorded in a bedroom snap sound now sounds like a bunch of snaps all panned out, all, you know, around you, and tight and fat and almost pitch perfect. Right? Like you can tell they're all pitched in harmony, which is a little weird, but I think sounds cool. I like that. Next sound, which we haven't worked with yet, we're going to disable Diva, is this also sort of crappy snare sound. It's like, I don't know why, but sometimes using low rent drum sounds, it's just easier to get a better feel. Like Battery has some amazing sounds in it that are ultra grungy and awful, but like in the process of trying to make them sound clean, you can get something really kind of cool and fat out of them. This is probably a good candidate also. This is like the sub-synth and repitch episode where we just put it on everything. I only have like a half a dozen plugins I use on a regular basis, maybe a dozen, because they're just good. When you find what works, just stick with it. Okay, so this is probably not low enough. Yeah, it's just making a thump noise. So what we need instead of that is repitch. And always turn down your wet because it usually sounds like hot doo-doo. Let's do down a fifth. That's not down a fifth, down a fifth. And also down a fifth in the formant. And then maybe let's try down an octave even. Shift 1 octave, shift -12 semitones. Wow, okay, I want it fatter. Yeah, let's try this now. Actually, let's, that's kind of interesting. Okay, I don't think the 2 octave one is doing anything for us. So what we're going to try now is actually moving it up. 7. Maybe like a third, maybe like a minor third. Yeah, let's try that. Let's see what we get. And we've got down a fifth, down an octave. Okay, yeah, let's try this. There we go. There's like a little slap I was looking for that was there. Don't need that. This is like the fine process of like, wow, this sound is awful, and it kind of isn't going to sound not awful. So what you got to do is just sort of lean into it and then clean it up a little bit after the fact. I'm not sure this is the right sound. This reverb might be too much. Let's try like a 15%. It's almost like a glitchy sound. This might be too clear. We might need something like, actually, Seventh Heaven. This is Bricasti, best Bricasti M7 plugin on the market. I've used a real Bricasti M7. It's badass. Super ultra cool. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that. -2. So that actually adds, so I know that seems really subtle what I was doing there, and I wasn't talking a lot because I was trying to just figure out how to actually get that to sound best. But basically, what I was doing is giving depth to this sound so that it sounds drier. By giving a small amount of depth to it, it'll actually sound darker than if I had rolled off the treble and not processed it. So this is a processing and in context, which is dry and dark, and we want it to sound dry and dark. And this is processed. Right, it slaps a little bit more, but it has a depth to it, so it doesn't hit actually quite as hard, and that gives us a perception that it's a little further away, which is what we want. We want it to be a little bit darker. Let's see what we've got with our drum beat now. So that's sounding pretty good for the drum beat. We'll do more work on it later. Right now what I want to do is, this is the thing I always do, it just makes everything sound better. Pretty much. Classical music, hip hop. everything in between. Always sounds better when I do this. This is one of my absolute secret weapons of all time. You guys are getting it right here, right now, for free. No charge. Listen to this. This is crazy. This will blow your minds, I hope. So we have our mix. Let's get deep. I use a little bit of EQ. I like to hear more bass because I like a lot of bass. So I want to be able to hear the bass. So I use a little bit of EQ in the RME Fireface UFX2 that I have. And I just cut everything above 80 hertz, Q of 0.7, -6. So it's the same thing as a bass shelf, except it sounds better because there's only so much bandwidth you have. So I'm not actually directly filtering the bass, and I'm not causing my levels to, I'm not having to, if I did just a bass lift by 6 dB, I would have to trim this, and you get into too much gain control at that point. So I just cut everything above 80 hertz by 6 dB. That's what I use for, these are LCD2 closebacks. So yeah, let's get deep and dirty into our mix and listen to this. So that's the cool thing. I love using that. Whoops. Tight. It's cinematic rooms, not a cheap plugin, but really worth it. Best reverb plugins on the market from Liquid Sonics, in my opinion. It's the transparent ambience. I turn it down usually to about 6 dB, somewhere in there. And then I'll usually roll off the bass up to about 100 hertz. Sometimes it's nice to have it in the bass. This song is supposed to be kind of dark and dry, like Billie Eilish style, so I don't want too much room sound in the bass. Roll off the treble, because again, it's supposed to be dark and dry. And it just sounds awesome. Just sounds super good. What headset would you guys recommend for great bass? LCX and the Penrose was something that slams without EQ. Let me think. Actually, I was just on the Audeze website, wasn't I? XC might be good. I like the LCD2. I think it has more bass, has a little bit of a bass bump. LCD4, LCD. I like the LCD I series. They definitely have more bass. GX has good bass, actually. Some people find the LCD2 and LCD3 have more bass as well. I think that's definitely true. So yeah, I would say the LCDX is meant to be quite linear. But those would be my recommendations. Almost everything else we make. The thing about planar drivers, though, and that's really nice about them, is that they take EQ really well because the distortion is like a tenth of what other, like what a dynamic driver would be. And so they respond very well to being fairly heavily EQ'd, actually. Some people don't like EQ. Some people don't want to use EQ. That's fine. But it is very much a possibility with these headphones. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take everything down to -23 less. And this takes a little while. We're going to be, wow, it's running a little slower than usual. Oh, brother. Well, what this does basically is it loudness normalizes all of the tracks that I have to the same loudness. Now, why would I want to loudness normalize all my tracks? Because I can adjust the levels to a degree of balance. This is way too slow. We're not going to wait for that. Let's just do RMS. So this averages everything out to peak RMS and then makes it quieter according to whatever the peak RMS of each clip is. So we'll have to go back through and adjust some of the finely edited clips. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm letting it edit all my clips to make sure that they all have the same RMS loudness. Yeah, this is a slightly clunky way of doing it. I should have done this before, but it does make my life a little bit easier because especially when I've edited things fairly aggressively, like chop them all up here, what I can do is I can say, all right, well, the snaps over here are loud enough and they're balanced with when the vocal gets put in or synth comes in or whatever. And then the snaps over here are too loud and I actually need them to be quieter. What I can do is I can just turn the clip gain on these clips down only instead of having to adjust all this other stuff or trying to adjust this and then automate it. So that's a nice way of doing it without having to go through and futz about with automation. I hate futzing about with automation. One of my goals in mixing and production is always to do as little automation as possible because it's just a pain in the butt and there's too much work involved. I'm trying to reduce the amount of work. Headphone setup from DAC to amp. So in my studio right here, I have a Fireface UFX2 from RME. I'm going into a shit Goonier DAC. And then I have normally I have an SPL Fondator X that I run into. I also at the moment am borrowing a Chord Hugo TT2 and M scaler. My SPL blew up recently. And so I am using the Jotunheim, not the new one, but the old one, as my headphone amp at the moment. So that's what I'm using for this. So we can hear things are quite a bit quieter. The snaps are still like comically loud. We're just going to take those down with a little bit of bit shift gain. There we go. And, we'll do it before any of the processing, because why not? Still too loud. Now, we have only a few minutes left. I have to go in about 10 minutes. But what we're going to do is another uber duper secret, super secret weapon, which is Air Windows Purist Console 2. Now, let's see, we're going to need bus, no bus. Yeah. Oh, it's all the buses. Okay. Bus. And then, yeah, I guess all of these get console channel. Don't need that open. This always takes a little bit of time to get squared away, so bear with me for a moment. That's disabled. I'm sure I have the MIDI for that lying around somewhere. Whoops, it's the same one, sorry. Just make sure that this came into the bus the correct way. Console. Good. Okay. Console. Perfect. This one needs to have these reorganized. There. Perfect. Hopefully that won't bring up any noise, but we can always fix that if we need to. Bus plug, blah, blah, blah. Perfect. And then we need one on the... And I just have these assigned to a Reaper keyboard shortcut. We're also going to add dither, because there's a cool dither that Air Windows makes that I just put on everything. And it makes everything sound better. Don't know why. But... how much are these clipping by? 0.5. Oh, it boosted them. I don't know why it boosted them. They didn't need to be boosted. Yeah, those don't need to be boosted. Silly Reaper. Sometimes, that's why I always get to monitor stuff like that, because sometimes it boosts things and they don't need boosting. Probably boosted them because I didn't trim the clip short enough. Trim the clip short enough. And we're probably really quiet now. Yeah, so we can turn things up. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to just doink. We're going to reset all levels to 0. Ah, I see. I had a big volume trim going on there. Okay. Okay, so now that's a little too much. I'm going to take this one down by... Gosh, this one is so loud too. Did it boost this one? Yeah, it boosted it by plus 12. Again, a mistake on the part of the... Yeah, none of these need to be boosted. Don't know why it's boosting those. These can probably all be cut by probably about 6 dB. So I'm just going to add a bit shift gain to all of them. And down by 1. Down by 1. Down by 1. That's 6 dB, by the way. Oh, and put it before the bus, or before the console. Yep, okay, cool. Let's check that out. Okay, weird. Some of them have become terribly the wrong. Yeah, so I can talk about that actually as I just work on this. Oh, I don't know why these are so loud. This is silly. I'm just going to turn this down manually to there-ish. More or less. Just going to match them. Yeah, we just go through and take all the ones that are too loud, which is a lot of them. I don't know why it's not really doing it right, but handwork. Like I said, always try and avoid this, but it does save us time when it comes to, stop doing that please, when it comes to automation. So I'm going to try and just roughly match the level. It doesn't have to be too exact because we'll be compressing all this later and making it all the same volume, which will be nice. So when it comes to mixing and mastering, it's really not that much different from the considerations that you have when you're listening to something for pleasure. And that is, what do you want to hear in terms of tonality that's going to be as minimally annoying to you as possible? So there's a few technical considerations, which are, of course, latency and things like that. You do want to make sure that your DAC doesn't have gobs and gobs of latency. Most DACs, it's not a problem. The chord stuff, for example, has big latency, but you can defeat it, which is good. But you know, if a DAC has a huge amount of latency, that can be a problem. Now, most DACs don't have too much of a problem with that, so it's not a huge issue. But if you're real sensitive to it, definitely, especially if you're producing, like that's why I do mixing a lot more. We can do producing stream, but there's a little more monkeying that has to happen from my end to get the latency to be right. So latency is something. And then also the relative tonality of a piece of gear. I like the shit gear because it's got this real punchy sound to it. The dangerous music stuff also kind of has that sound where it's real punchy and snappy. Now the good thing about that is that it allows you to hear the musical dynamics coming through. But a downside might be when you hear something as being, you know, a little too harsh, you might over soften it, right? So your mixing gear, you want obviously to have as neutral or close to neutral as possible, but your mixing gear is going to kind of determine how you mix, right? I like to make things super punchy, like ultra punchy with tons of bass, and I like to make things kind of fat. And as a result, I like gear that sounds a little bit fat and punchy and fast, and maybe even a touch warm. I don't mind a touch warm, because I know that as a result, my mixes are going to come out more even, because I like to mix things sounding just a tiny bit dark and a tiny bit warm and punchy. So if I do that on stuff that already leans that way, I'm going to end up closer to neutral than if I was on ultra bright gear. Now, I'm experienced enough, of course, that I can mix on any gear and it should sound good. But that's kind of a consideration, right? Like, what's going to be not annoying for you is also an important part, right? And that's the kind of gear that for me is not annoying. Gear that has a big spike at 4K, super annoying. Like, almost always, I would say studio gear, if it has a little bit of a dip at 4K, I'm okay with it, because I can listen to it for a long time and it's not going to be fatiguing. That is too loud. Probably by almost about 6 dB. As you can hear, right, that is all like pretty sharp treble stuff, right? It's real dark, sharp, and that's too quiet. We'll just turn up the reverb. Actually, we'll just turn this up. Perfect. So stuff like that kind of is gear that you enjoy listening to, right? Gear that obviously has relatively flat frequency response. That's a pretty easy one. Gear that doesn't present the bass in a weird way is really hard to find. Like really clean, even, kind of organic, natural sounding bass. That's really important to me. Oh, it looks like it's going to rain outside. And I think in general, you know, if you've invested in a headphone amp and a DAC that you like for studio or for streaming or things like that, you're going to get a much better experience than most people have, right? And in general, especially at the low to medium price points, not the super, super high-end stuff, you're going to find things have just a better overall signature and response than the really basic equipment, right? It's just such a step up from something like an interface headphone output that your mixes, right, and your quality of work, whether you're an audio professional or streamer or whatever, just increases, right? Just gets better. So the biggest thing is taking the first step. Once you get into it, you'll start to learn what you like and what you don't like. And outside of the gear needing to be relatively neutral, right, and I would say non-annoying, right, you can listen to a brighter hi-fi system for a short period of time than a bright studio system for a long period of time. The most important thing is that you like it and you trust it and you know how it sounds in a studio environment. Studios don't have to be, actually, studios generally are less flat sometimes than I hear hi-fi systems being, because the space and the conditions are more compromised. There's more stuff that has to fit in. There's more there's more line stages. There's more amp stages, more processing that has to happen in between what's coming out of the computer and finally reaching your ears, right? So it's complicated, right? You're not looking for maximum sonic purity necessarily, like in hi-fi where there's as few pieces as possible. You're looking for stuff that can help you do your work right? So, oh, it's got like a little holographic thing in the mid-range that's really pleasing and cool, is not as important as the bass kind of moves the way that I need it to move to get bass crafted right, or the mid-range is flat, or excuse me, sorry. Or, you know, the playback equipment kind of presents the music to me in a way that feels creatively inspiring, and oftentimes that's less exciting than what a hi-fi system does. I don't want my studio stuff to be too hyped or too U-shaped or too much treble or too much bass or anything like that. I want it to be even if it's not perfectly flat, nothing is, right? But I want it to be even so that I can listen to it for a long time and so that I can get a clear picture of the music. That to me is creatively stimulating. Now, if a really V-shaped frequency response is creatively stimulating to you, you want to hear a ton of boosted highs and a ton of boosted bass when you produce, that's fine. as long as it works for you, right? That's the thing, is you just have to be honest about whether it's working for you. And yeah, don't buy Oratones. Probably shouldn't say that, but so that's pretty cool. I think we're ready to start doing some delay on the synth. We just have a few more minutes. Yeah, I gotta dip out here. But I really like this one. That's way too heavy. Wow, that was way more than I thought it would be. Actually, I kind of like that. I just don't want as much. I actually don't want a dual. I just want a single. To mess with that more. I have to go, unfortunately, everyone, but thanks for stopping by. We might work more on this later. This one's a little bit of a tricky one, actually. I didn't expect this to be as tricky as it was. So sorry I didn't talk as much as usually you do. This one's a little bit of a puzzle. Have a great weekend, and Wednesdays 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, gaming, and Fridays around 3-ish p.m. Pacific is gonna be music streamy things. Maybe we'll produce a track next time and talk about the playing and the production and all that kind of stuff, because that's kind of fun as well, and that could be cool. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Rest up, relax, and I will see you next week.